Good evening and welcome to HOTSEAT with me, Akin Tayo. We are here at the headquarters of the UNECA in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and we'll be looking at how can Africa's natural resources be harnessed to provide opportunities and best practices. We'll start with an African proverb which says, however long the night, the dawn will surely break. With the growing demands for mineral resources, water and land, for agriculture across Africa from new players such as China and even the wealthy countries in North Africa, in the Middle East, there is now a window of opportunity for Africans to harness and improve their natural resources governance. And this is the reason why we have this special conference on this issue. We're having a coalition of the African Union, we have the Africa Development Bank, and also the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, under the umbrella of the Coalition for Dialogue on Africa. They call it CoDA. So the question is, how can Africa fulfill the full potential of its natural resources? I'm now joined by His Excellency, a man revered all over Africa, the former president of Botswana and chairperson of CoDA, President Festus Mogae. Also, Dr. Kojo Busia is the Senior Development Managing Officer and Chair, African Peer Review Mechanism Support Unit, and he's also under the Governance and Public Administration Department here at the UN Economic Commission for Africa. Gentlemen, welcome to HOTSEAT.
Thank you.
Let me start with His Excellency. We've been having problems in Africa with leaders who do things that are not of benefit to the people. It doesn't look like the Land Use Act, the Land Tenure Act all over Africa. Some of the people are still complaining.
It's not only the case with land. The leaders have to do the right thing with respect to everything in governing their countries and leading their people. They should not take advantage of their position in acquiring land unfairly. That is, we must realize that they are citizens, the leaders are citizens, and to the extent that they have capacity to invest, they should do so. They should be allowed to do so, but they should follow the rules and not take advantage, unfair advantage of their position. I mean, if this is what you are saying, they should not. And where there is a shortage of land, then there has to be prioritization. And since when you are in charge, you have to come last because you are the one who is going to be a referee. And so if you are saying that there are leaders who take advantage of their position and allocate themselves more land than they deserve, more land than they should, then that's wrong. And that has been part of the problems that in the past African leaders were accused of not being fair, and in fact some of them being outright corrupt.
Okay, let me move to Dr. Busia. It's nice to have you here with us. Over the past few years, companies and foreign governments have been leasing large areas of land in some of Africa's poorest countries. And according to research, many commentators have raised concerns that poor villagers will forced off their land and agribusiness will marginalize family business. And others say that foreign investment can help African countries create jobs, increase export earnings, and use more advanced technologies. But with the recent examples we had in South Africa with Marikana mines, Anglo Gold having problems with the workers. Is it the case with foreign investments creating more jobs?
Well, I mean, the issue of foreign capital in Africa's development will always be an issue of concern. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with foreign investments in any natural resource in Africa. I think partnerships are necessary in developing Africa's vast mineral and natural resources. But as the former president of Botswana said, the ultimate principle should be that whatever investments come to Africa must benefit the people. And that requires that our governments are speaking on behalf of the people when they transact these businesses. So ultimately, to the extent that investments will lead to the provision of public goods in the form of services, infrastructure, and so on. I think that's ultimately the optimal way of exploiting natural resources on behalf of the people, because ultimately these resources belong to the people who live on these lands.
Okay, still towing that line, let me go back to His Excellency. We want to look at the companies coming together, foreign companies coming together to make sure that they maximize all these profits, all this mining from Africa. But like, as a former leader, what's your advice to African leaders to make sure that these oil giants, mining giants coming to Africa to extract all these things, make sure that they pay the normal tax they're supposed to pay, and they also do things to make sure Africans benefit and there is no uprising against them?
Obviously, as Dr. Busia says, investment is necessary, and therefore foreign direct investment is also welcome. What matters is the terms and conditions on which they come into the country, and the share of costs and benefits between the investor, the foreign investor in this case, and the country. And therefore, when we license foreign investors in the mining sector, for instance, then to start with, we know that mining, for instance, has environmental impact. That has to be taken account of. I recommend the resource charter. I recommend the African mining, what do you call it, vision. They should act in accordance of those. Really, those two documents virtually prescribe what ought to happen, on the assumption that the leaders are there for the people, not for themselves. The problem is that, I don't know, when you keep on saying they grab and so on, they grab not because they don't know what to do. It's difficult for me to know what to do to stop bad leaders from doing that. Because if they are acting out of avarice, out of greed, it's not because they don't know what is right. It's just that they want to be greedy. It's like when our soldiers, instead of defending us against foreign countries or foreign enemies, they then overthrow civilian rulers and then rule us by force. I don't think, if you ask me, what should I say to them? Of course I will say, they shouldn't do that. They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to protect us. The same thing goes with the leaders. The leaders are supposed to protect the people. They are supposed to act on behalf of the people, fairly moderate or act as referees between different interests among the people, and be they part of the solution, not part of the problem. That is why we have not made as much progress as we should have done. To the extent that we African leaders have done that, to that extent, that's why we have failed in developing our societies, in developing our countries. Foreign companies cannot be blamed to the same extent. It's understandable. Foreign companies, when they went somewhere, even we ourselves, when we go abroad, we want to maximize returns to ourselves to the extent possible. Now, these people do that. Of course, good people, even when they invest, wanting to maximize their returns, they would have a conscience, but others would not. But it is the duty of the government, it is the duty of the leader of a country to stand up to the foreign investors who may want to grab everything and maximize their profits to the extent, to the exclusion of any benefit to anybody else.
Yeah, but Your Excellency, there's always been this problem between the investors and the government when the communities complain, just like what happened in the Niger Delta of Nigeria, the Shell, and also what happened in Zambia. Miners against the Chinese investors. There's always this trading of blame between the government and investors. The investors will say, we have paid the necessary things to the government. Always lying.
The investor is the one who is impacting negatively on the environment. Then our next question will be, and what are you doing about it? That been the case. because as the government, they have the power to do something to improve the situation. Because I'm willing, I have been a leader, I'm willing to grant that you can make a genuine mistake. You can enter into an agreement with an investor in the belief that they will act in a particular way. And then they might, the investor might interpret the agreement, look carefully at the loopholes and take advantage of that. If then that becomes to your attention, or your attention is drawn to that fact by your people, then it is your duty to correct your mistake. It's not enough to say it is the foreign investor. Then you should do something about it. If in fact, genuinely, you agree with the people that what the investor is doing is wrong, and that's what you did not intend.
Okay, let me, Dr. Busia, we're still talking about transparency and policies. Why is it that there is always this problem, like the people are blaming the government or their local chiefs for all the problems? But it's like, how do you perceive it that the people at the top talk directly to the investors and they talk with the chiefs, and the chiefs are perceived to be the representatives of the people, but at times the people say they go there and they don't go there for their own benefits? So what's your unit doing to, like, maybe let them know that this is the right way to do things, or maybe it is wrong?
Mm-hmm. No, I think it all goes back to the principle of transparency, which President Mogae has articulated so well in the context of Botswana. In Africa, I think some of the deficiencies in our governance system is that there are not enough structures and institutions and mechanisms for consulting citizens. One of the problems is that fundamentally, unlike advanced democracies in Europe and perhaps North America, Africa, we did not perhaps get the benefit of evolving institutions, for example, income taxation. If you have direct income tax, it is a bedrock of democracy. Why? Because it links the citizen to the state, and that the state cannot take decisions without consulting the citizen, because ultimately the state needs the taxes of the citizen. So that seals a contract, what we call social contract, between the state and society. In Africa, unfortunately, in most of Africa, we have a different trajectory of evolving our democratic system. And this is where informal institutions, which are traditionally based, are very useful. And I think the case of Botswana serves as a model whereby they are able to marry the informal traditional institutions with the formal governance system and come up with optimal decision-making processes that ultimately benefit the people. And in the sector of minerals, I think the issue of transparency is so important, it's so fundamental, from the stages of exploration to the whole value chain. You need to consult. Contracting with the foreign investor, making sure that compensations are provided in the bill that will govern the exploitation process, and more importantly, how to manage the revenues that accrue from the sector. And that is where you need to consult at all levels or stages of exploitation. So this is something that is evolving. There are best practices on the continent, ultimately. The case of Botswana is unique. And I think increasingly Africans are learning from each other. And this is where mechanisms like peer review comes in. It's a mechanism where African states review each other's performance based on standards that they have agreed upon. And one of the benefits of this is that we learn the best practices from each other. The Botswanas would teach the Congos or whatever countries that are still in the process of learning. So I think through this exchange of best practices, peer pressure, I think ultimately we will get it right, because it is possible that it can be done. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it can be done. We'll go on a commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the negative outcome of some of these land deals. And just like His Excellency President Mogae has been saying, what can we do to make sure that there is transparency all over Africa when we are having land deals? We'll be back shortly.